Hey guys, I'm back, and today's video is going to be covering the medic class. The medic class is a very unique class. It does not have a lot in the way of being too defensive. It doesn't have a lot in the way of being offensive, but what it excels at, obviously, being a medic, is being a support class. Now, there's a few things that you need to be aware of going into the medic class, depending on what platform you're on. Some of the skills are not functioning properly. The last time that I played the PlayStation 4 version was just before this latest content update where we got the new skins for the characters and the backpack trinkets and whatnot. And all of these were working as intended as far as I could tell. Now, I haven't played the Xbox version, and I don't really intend to in the near future. Uh, but I will let you know that on the PC, these are not all functioning properly. In fact, two of them are kind of messed up. Triage is not giving you a total 50%. There's about a 6 second time to apply the kit. It's only taken about 2 seconds off the clock. It should be taking three. And sugar coated is just not working at all. Now, again, depending on what platform you're playing on. If you're on the consoles and sugarcoated is still working at this point, I would highly suggest just going with sugarcoated. If you're on PC, stick with triage. That's where I'm at right now. The 10% doctor in the house, 10% is just not enough. That's half of the hit. Not even a hit. That's just maybe a bullet graze from a teammate when you're in insane or extreme. And heck, it's even more than that. So this is really just kind of pointless. Either one of these two is what you should be working with. But again, watch what you pick depending on what platform you're on. In this tree right here, you could really kind of go with any one of these. This class does have a tendency to lend to a much more lax talent selection. There's, again, aside from the broken things, you could really just kind of throw a dart at a board, and for the most part, it's going to work all across the board. But I will make an argument for Pick Me Up. I think Pick Me Up is absolutely integral to gameplay. If you cannot get to somebody with a stim, maybe you're out of health kits. If you're in a situation where somebody is down and things are really dire, then having that temporary health boost actually synergizes really well with painkiller, and I'll get into that one in just a moment. But having that extra temp health is really going to be a boon when you don't have those other things available to you. Now, paramedic is something that I like to run with from time to time, just depending on what the build, what the group layout is like. If you've got a fixer, more than likely they've already got this skill, so it's not really too necessary that you've got it. Um, and the extra 30% health restore it really can be just as effective. So if you're new starting out, medic's your first class, you're trying to save some scratch on points, you don't have to jump into these right away. Maybe save them for later and just stick with that early on. Now, moving into this next tree, by and far, Painkiller has got to be one of the best. It actually works with all the other temp health functions that the class has across the trees here. Um, Columns, rows, and it it's absolutely phenomenal. It really extends the duration of the shields and how long they last. If you're in stretches where you don't have to constantly keep dumping them on people, plus it's nice you can actually pop shields on people when you don't necessarily need to just be in those. You don't need to be in a hectic situation to use it. You can just put it on people, and they're going to have it when the hectic situation comes. Um, if you want to play more offensively, if you want to be a little bit more greedy with your heals, or you just don't ever find yourself needing to use them too much on other people, or if you're just starting out with the meta class and you're just getting familiar with using it, I recommend going with empathy, because empathy is going to encourage you to use your kits on other people, um, your equipment, and it's also going to benefit you as well, because obviously it's applying some of its back to you. And moving on to the next one, you could really kind of go with any of these. Now, this is probably the only class that I would ever actually say, wheatgrass is a good option, because in most of the other classes, everything else is a better option than wheatgrass. But again, it's only going to save you a hit, maybe two hits, when you just depending on what difficulty you're in. But I always like to have a stronger gun starting out. But really, you could go with any one of these, and they're all going to work just fine. Now, second wind, I don't ever really find myself ever in a situation where I need to have second wind. It's just, it doesn't happen. Not for me. If you find yourself being a little bit on the weaker side, you're not as quick on the draw, but you're really good at being your support guy, maybe go with second wind and it'll work out for you. Into the next one, I just combat medic. It's always got to be combat medic. it's only a 3-minute cooldown. Sure, it's a great deal of time, but when you're in the higher difficulty levels and other people are just grabbing health kits because they're so paranoid, and it's going to happen, especially when you're in pugs, people are going to go for those health kits as soon as they see them. If they've been hit 2 or 3 times, or if they've been knocked down once already, that it's, by default, that's what they're going to go with. You really should be the one carrying the kits in most situations, and you need to be responsible with them. But this allows you to be a little bit more liberal with those kits. So in either situation, whether you do need the kits or you don't need the kits, this is always going to be there for you. Now, granted, it's only a 50% chance, and you will hear it go off when you're fighting. If you've got a huge swarm coming at you and you're just blasting away, you'll hear a little tick tick sound that kind of happens in your headphones or on your speakers, whatever. If you don't see a kit pop up, that means it procced. Now you got to wait another 3 minutes for that timer to reset and hopefully get that extra 50% chance. So it's not as robust as some of the other classes as far as their region on the kits go, but in my opinion, it's still the only one you should be running in this tree. Now, on to the next one. I really feel like you could just kind of go with any one of these. I mean, it's not really going to hurt at any degree. Again, this is just one of those classes where you can just kind of dump stuff, and I personally prefer, I'll take that. I'm always on point when it comes to special zombies, and to me, this is kind of a no-brainer because it's only 30 seconds. And again, this one's only 30 seconds as well. Pickpocket works really well, but the medic doesn't have a lot in way of penetration, so it's a lot harder for them to get those 15 rapid kills as much as some other classes, especially in the harder difficulty tiers. So in my opinion, I think I'll take that. Should be the go-to. Now, the next tree, if you're going to play offensively, when I discussed using empathy earlier, I would recommend going within the zone. This will benefit you by giving you some extra firearm damage for 10 seconds. And 10 seconds is a considerable amount of time, especially when the medic is already a kind of a weak class to begin with. Forgive and forget is what I personally like to use for the most part, just because, when you're playing with pugs, you guys, everybody, we've all been there. Some people just don't care. They just shoot where they're shooting, and if you walk in front of them, they don't stop. They don't aim out of the way. They don't crouch. Maybe you don't. This is a good buffer. 25% is a reasonable part of the equation here. But either way, it really doesn't matter. I don't think fighting fit is something that should really ever come into place unless you've got an absolutely rock solid team and nobody ever takes any damage. I really don't think fighting fit's ever really worth getting. So in this tree, again, this is just one of those things where I don't think what was in that is worth getting at all, just because as a medic, I don't really find myself doing that many melee strikes to begin with, but you have to use the stim pistol to get the extra strikes. I mean, that's only 4 extra strikes, and you know how easy it is to just whiff 2 or 3 strikes when you're just swinging away trying to push stuff away from you. I just don't think it's worth having because you actually have to use your kit to take a benefit from it, and the benefit's just not that great. I do like to use the heal, the extra 10% heal. It's not very huge. I also like to use secret ingredient, but you've got to be really careful using secret ingredient. This is, again, something that I would use if I'm going with a more offensive build. If I'm playing offensively, this is what it would look like. If I'm trying to be a team player, this is what it's going to look like. And the reason why I say that is because when you use a stim pistol and you get that masking effect, it instantly drops threat on whoever gets it. So if you're with a buddy and 2 other people are down and he's getting ready to take the assault, and he's surrounded, as soon as you pop that on him, you're done for, man. They're all coming for you, and you better hope you've got an extra one for yourself at that point. It's just, I think it's a little bit too risky to use that sometimes, but I do enjoy using it. It's really super cool to have, and it could get you really familiar with Fixer later on because Fixer has masking gas. Now, moving on to the next one. I know that Lobotomy was kind of messed up for a while. I don't know what it's like now, but if you're the kind of player that likes to ADS, you like to aim down sight, you don't really shoot from the hip very often, Lobotomy is actually really cool and can help you out quite a bit. swapping mags is also really stellar as well. This kind of keeps you in the SMG game, though. Keep that in mind. Now, this one right here, Adrenaline, is, again, this is kind of in the same vein as using Fighting Fit, and what was in that. Like, these three skills, just, they're very situational, and the situations just don't seem to be as frequent. I always look for uptime in all of my builds. Like, how frequently are you going to be using this? And obviously, to me, that's the one you should go for. Anyway, back to lobotomy. I thought at one point in time it either was doing less or more than what you were supposed to be getting. I know that there was something about it that's not functioning correctly. If anybody's aware of that, please feel free to chime in, add to that part of the conversation. It'd be great to know. But as it stands, I don't really use it that often. I prefer to have a fast reload. To me, faster reloads is pretty much game breaking in a lot of situations. But yeah, that's it for this video. And stick around for the next one. I'll be covering the Fixer.